It's another episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast as Rachel Donner joins today's episode as we continue and we turn to relocation talk as we move forward about the Arizona Coyotes relocation to Salt Lake City. We'll talk about that on today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, their relocation, and the NHL in Utah. Today's episode brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes, unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play and or the Apple Store. Game on. I am your host, Robyn Leano. And I just want to thank everyone who have been everydayers, been tuning into this show, making it your first listen every day for the last 3.5 years. I really appreciate all your support of here on the Locked On Coyotes podcast. You're going to see some changes be happening over the next couple of weeks as we get ready for the Arizona Coyotes relocation to Salt Lake City, or at least the hockey ops side of it relocation to Salt Lake City. The Coyotes name, once again, as a quick reminder, staying right here in Arizona, but we're continuing to cover the team that's moving to the state just north of us. We're going to talk about that. I want to just preface you guys this episode that I'm bringing you guys Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers and Locked On NHL joins us on today's episode. She is from Utah, at least originally, and has spent a lot of time in Utah. Knows the hockey landscape there. This episode was recorded a little bit earlier last week, before some of the developments came out on, for example, like the potential names. But I just wanted to get you guys know that this is what's going to happen, and I just hope you guys enjoy today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes and your new Utah NHL team. I'm your host, Robyn Leano. We are continuing relocation talks on throughout this week and for at least quite a while until we know a little bit more. I got Rachel Donner from Locked On NHL and Locked On Flyers joining us on today's episode. Rachel, good to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very happy to be here, but I'm very sorry about the circumstances.
Yeah, I wish we were having you. At least I wish we were talking under different circumstances, given how sudden this whole relocation talk just went from zero to not just 0 to 60, went from 0 to 100 in like an instant on the Coyotes situation. Coyotes fans are heartbroken, but I feel like as someone who's transitioning to covering the Utah team, we have a lot of Utah fans out here excited for the team. I know that you spend a lot of time in Utah, so we're I felt like it's really good to have you on to kind of talk about the hockey scene there and how it's all, what the vibes might be like. You might be a little bit away from that state now, but hey, it's still as close to boots on the ground as we can get right now.
Right. Yeah, I did live in Salt Lake City for 13 years, pretty recently. So yeah, I mean, it feels like a second home to me out there, and I miss it terribly. It was a really great place to live, and a really good hockey community there as well.
So I guess tell me about what that community is like, because it's amazing the comments that I'll get, or like the whether it's on social media or on Utah. It was like two sides of different kinds of people. It was like, oh, Utah will never support an NHL team, or there's the other was like, oh, I'm so excited for the team. Where what is the the appetite like for the sport? Not necessarily for the NHL, but for the sport.
Well, first off, I mean, it is a winter sports hub,
Hmm.
right? With the mountains and the Winter Olympics there and everything. And, I attended those Winter Olympics in 2002, went to some hockey games out there and had an amazing time. And I think that the appetite is there, but I think, Utah sports fans demand a high level of sport. And so, it's a place where I think that an NHL team would thrive a lot more than the ECHL team that's there. And I've been to tons of Grizzlies games and I've always had a good time. They have a good product, but it's just not NHL quality hockey. And you can see the difference when some of the preseason games that they've had there with either the Golden Knights or the Kings out there, you can just see the difference in the crowd. And there's a lot of people there that absolutely love hockey. They just want to see good hockey.
Were you able to get to a Frozen Fury game when or no?
No, unfortunately, they didn't have them in Salt Lake until
Fair
after
enough.
I left, or there was one there, but I just couldn't go for some reason. It was like a work thing, but I was so thrilled that they kept coming back there. And you and I were talking before we started recording, and I think that if you look sort of back into the history of hockey in Utah, where you had the Golden Eagles there,
Hmm.
and that was an IHL team which was
Yeah,
on par with the AHL, right? And when
yeah.
those two leagues combined, Utah lost out and wound up with an ECHL team that was then affiliated with the Ducks. And, you know, I think because of that, that made the market suffer. And then you look at the current state of AHL teams that are affiliated with NHL teams and how close they are to their NHL franchises. And Salt Lake is in this weird geographic zone where, Phoenix is an 8 to 10 hour
Yeah.
trip and Denver's a 7 hour trip. And then San Francisco is, I don't even know, like 12 to 14 hours maybe. I'm just guessing at that one, but it's it's a significant trip. And so there was no team that really wanted to put their AHL team in Salt Lake because it was too far away.
And that makes sense. And so getting a more high profile team in there is going to would certainly help that market. I'm glad you mentioned the Golden Eagles. That's something I was looking at, that in that history of the IHL. I don't think people realize, but people follow like because I was looking at the history of the IHL, and people kind of followed that league almost like religiously before you mentioned, like, a lot of that merging with the AHL. Coyotes fans know this because they probably followed hockey in Arizona for as long as they had, and the Phoenix Roadrunners were they, they were a fun group. I think a lot of people paid a significant amount of attention to them, which ended up as similar to what happened to Utah, where they kind of fizzled out the moment the Arizona Coyotes came in town. But this is a different situation where they did get a pro team and Utah didn't.
Yeah, and it's just like it's tough for these smaller cities to get the kind of buy-in from the bigger leagues. And I think that that's one of the things that's really encouraging about what's happening there now is that you have Ryan Smith, who's already involved in a big time team in the market and understands what it takes to run a team and have it be successful from a marketing standpoint. And I do also think in Salt Lake, and anybody from Utah is listening right now who disagrees with me can absolutely do so. But I think there's a tremendous appetite for sports that are not the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake and in Utah
Yeah.
as a whole. I think it led to a really strong Real Salt Lake in Major League Soccer. Now the Utah Royals are back on the women's side. And I think you look at their college football fan base, you look at gymnastics and volleyball. There's so many other sports that have a strong fan base in that state that there is absolutely room for hockey here.
So, would it be fair to say in some sense, not to kind of like put down the Jazz in any way, but that a lot of
Oh, of
people,
course.
but a lot of people might have been feeling a little bit of like single pro team fatigue. That kind of
Yes.
they wanted to go out and venture out and have other experiences rather than just the NBA.
Yeah, it's not, it could be both. It's not like people dislike the Jazz per se.
Right.
It's just that you want more than that because you love sports and it's exciting and fun and you just want a different kind of experience.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've probably been to a number of Jazz games, right? Tell me about that. I guess the the arena they're in, the kinds of fans you're experiencing. I know there might be some overlap between the fans, which is why I'm asking, and just the atmosphere in an arena in downtown Salt Lake.
Yeah, I mean, the Delta Center is a super fun venue. Like I said, I went there a bunch of times for various things over the years, including the 2002 Olympics. And I went there for multiple Jazz games and concerts. And I know they're working on proposals to fix it up a little bit, but I found it to be a really fun venue for basketball. I love the sight lines in particular. And I think that, the fan base can get really loud in there at Jazz games. I think that it is an intense fan culture there for sure. And I think, as we get kind of further away from that Karl Malone, John Stockton era of the Utah Jazz, there's fewer people that remember what it was like then, but I do. And I think that, when the Jazz are good and when there's a good product, like there's nothing like Utah fans. And I've also attended a Utah versus BYU football game. That was absolutely spectacular as far as a fan experience.
What do they refer to it? The Holy War? That I'm
mistaken? Holy War, yeah.
I have heard some great. I have heard some really fun experiences can come out of those games, and that's actually one of my hopes. I want to check out one of those games. I think they're both now joining the Big 12, so I think that's going to be that sure will be an interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna go a little bit more into that into the whole Delta Center thing and get your pick your brain on some of the thoughts here. And you talked about that they're focusing on getting the renovations in there to make it a little more feasible for hockey. Because you praised how it is for basketball. My understanding is it is probably, they say it's one of like the tighter venues in the NBA as it is. So we're looking at a few thousand seats that are going to be relatively obstructed. Maybe it'd be like a goal or what that might be obstructed. Coyotes fans know the situation that they had when they played at America West in downtown Phoenix when they shared it with the Suns. Same kind of situation. Right. Do you think a lot of fans will that will deter a lot of fans if they end up getting like a ticket in an obstructed seat for these 3-4 years while they're in this situation?
Well, first off, I don't think it's anywhere near as negative of a situation as that. Well, I can't speak to America West, but I attended many Islanders games at Barclays Center, which had a full third of the seats that were obstructed view. And the Delta Center would not be anything like that. But I think that, given again, the commitment that Ryan Smith has made, I have no doubt that they'll get it done. That's one thing, they can do quick turnaround construction jobs in Utah.
Right. Yeah. And we're talking and I will say this, we are talking, still 12,000 seats unobstructed, 12,000 seats that will have a perfect view, which, and again, I hate to, to talk bad about the Coyotes here in Arizona. I spent so much time here, but compared to where they were previously at Mullet Arena, as much as I love the atmosphere there, we were talking more than double the amount of seats, which when you're in the NHL, that's what you need.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I just have really good feeling about what the plan is there and that they'll get it done.
And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get a $150 in bonus bets of any $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. For example, like my pick that I have made well over a year ago at this point now, maybe a little bit less than a year ago, for the Dallas Stars to win this year's Stanley Cup. Can they do it? Who knows? But you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Talk to me a little bit about the grassroots and community scene of hockey there, because that's one of the things that I hold near and dear to my heart here in Arizona. Is the grassroots scene, the youth hockey, adult leagues, and other ways that either the team like the Arizona Coyotes or other programs that are focusing on making sure that hockey is accessible to everybody in that region, in that market. What's it like over there in Utah?
Yeah, it's a tremendous hockey community in Salt Lake and in the whole Wasatch Front. I think that, youth hockey is really strong there, and there's lots of opportunities there. And one of the biggest aspects of that is the Utah Legacy Foundation, which was after the 2002 Olympics. There was a specific fund set up to help maintain the Olympic venues and maintain programs there to continue the growth of winter sports in the community. And so I personally did an adult learn to play program at County Ice Center in West Valley City. And that was so much fun. And then I wound up playing in a bunch of adult leagues all around the area. I played for a women's team called the Salt Lake Black Diamonds, which is a really fun organization. And there's at least 6, I believe, women's teams in the area that play each other. And then there's, out of town tournaments and stuff like that all around the Mountain West that I got to play in while I was there. And it's just a strong, welcoming hockey community there. I absolutely loved it. And I remember when the LA Kings won the Stanley Cup those 2 times, and Trevor Lewis, who was a member of the LA Kings, is from the Salt Lake area. And so he did his day with the Stanley Cup in Salt Lake. And both times the lines for, get a picture with the Stanley Cup and Trevor Lewis, like around the arena the first time. And then I believe the second time it was at the state capitol building in Salt Lake, which was really cool in and of itself. And just so much support for just one guy who won a cup with a team in California. So I can't imagine what it would be like, for a Utah team in the playoffs and such.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen pretty soon. I mean, they're going to be inheriting a team that's on the, that could be on the cusp of coming out of a rebuild. So who knows what they might look like in a couple years down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially with like the draft pick stockpile that team has, like, it's going to be real dangerous.
I can only imagine what would happen if this Utah team wins the lottery and gets Macklin and Celebrini. Oh, yeah. Arizona would be so upset.
And rightfully so, to be fair. But
one thing that, in addition, that I wanted to ask you about, and it's something that you mentioned off mic or off recording that I kind of want to kind of touch on, is the presence of either current or former, players who, decide to make their residence up there, and which a lot of people like to talk about too, because people don't realize people want to, end up moving places to retire or just to live there. Arizona has always been touted as, oh yeah, players love coming here to retire. It's like you have the highest concentration, whatever it is. But what's it like up there? How like what would be the draw for like players to be up there in Salt Lake City? And today's episode is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You've already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, You can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with a friend to complete albums, for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces for travel boards, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new, exciting, and every day with constantly changing tournaments, challenges, tons of unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
Yeah, I think that first off, they should talk to some jazz players. I think that would be helpful, and Real Salt Lake players as well. And I think there's so many different places for people to live that are in super close proximity to where they would practice and to the Delta Center downtown. Delta Center is so easy to get to quickly from many places in the area. And, there's places in the foothills where you can live. There's places in Park City and in that area, which is, only 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the weather, up the canyon. And, it's super gorgeous up there. And then there's the South Valley as well. And, even down into Utah County and Provo, like a lot of people like it down there. And it's just, it's super convenient. There's so much, there's a huge tech industry boom down in Utah County. And but there's just so many beautiful places to live with tremendous views and access to nature. I think, and golf courses, lots of golf courses there too. I know there are in Arizona, but we know how our hockey players love to golf. So I do think it's a really great community to live in. And I think that, there's a lot of opportunity there for families and downtown too. Like there's a lot of really cool condos going up downtown. So I think that, there is a lot of opportunity for people. And I know that like Luc Robitaille, LA Kings president, has a house in Park City as well and does a charity fundraiser there, or has done a charity fundraiser in Park City over the years. So there's like other NHLers who know the secret of Utah,
which is nice to hear. I love that you mentioned the golf courses, because I think that's like you mentioned, there's like that
very important.
That is a staple for hockey players. And I feel like a lot of people like that's instantly it's like, oh yeah, golf. Another thing I want to ask about, because this has been a topic of conversation with coworkers of mine at my day job, as well as people in my mentions and comments, is the situation when it comes to like, hey, you're moving into a city or such a state that's had stricter liquor laws and stricter X, Y, and Z. Is that even really a problem that for like sports fans, or is that just way overblown of everyone's concerns?
I think it's way overblown. I think first off, some of the rules have changed over the years. Second of all, I think like if you let a fraction of an alcoholic percentage affect your experience as a sports fan, I think you don't like sports, honestly. I mean, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I think, if you let it get to you, it'll get to you. And if you just live your life, it won't get to you at all. And that was my experience in that. Like even, in Pennsylvania, I cover the Flyers. In Pennsylvania, you got to go to a beer store, right? And in Utah, I could buy beer at the grocery store. Sure, it was 3.2, but didn't matter. It still tastes like beer. And, I did not really notice the difference. So I found that it was a lot of fun. And I tailgated at Real Salt Lake games all the time. Super fun times there. I love that tailgating culture that they've developed, and I don't notice a difference between there and any other place.
All right, I'm going to give you an opportunity to come up. So your 4 top potential names for the new Utah team.
Well, I feel like my gut says the Blizzard has an edge because it has 2 Z's in it, like the Jazz, and I feel like that's a thing in Utah, and that to have like that sort of branding, co-branding with the same ownership, I feel like there's something to that. I like some of the jersey designs I've seen for the Yeti, but I just don't like the team name personally.
Yeah. I have seen the Yeti as potential, and I'm like, I want to like it. I want to, but I'm just like, I just don't.
I don't either.
Don't.
I can't explain it. I just don't.
I mean, in the same avenue, I've had people like looking at the options of the names that were sent to the trademarks, and someone's like, please don't let it be the Fury.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Venom. I think that would be really cool. Just it would be something different for the NHL, I think. And although the Kraken is pretty different, I guess. But I think that, you're looking at some of those where it was like Utah HC or Hockey Club Utah or something like that. And I understand why people don't like it. They think it's not as fun as having like a real mascot name.
But for short term, it makes sense.
For short term, it's fine. Long term, I don't know. But I do remember very specifically when Utah got the MLS team, Real Salt Lake, people were like, why are you trying to just be Real Madrid, right? And just have it be Real Salt Lake. Well, first off, they were like sister clubs for a while. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but I think they just wanted it to have prestige. And then they got this whole royal branding around it, with the lion mascot. And now we have the Utah Royals women's team. And I just think that it's become like such a strong identity. And so names like can grow on you over time. So I wouldn't like throw anything out just at first thought, because I know that's how I felt about Real Salt Lake when they first announced that. And I was like, what? But then I have grown to love it. So
have you seen this at all? And this is something I'm talking, like, I have not talked about on the show yet that I've been meaning to talk about. And I want to get your opinion on this. Because this is maybe strictly from a hockey fan perspective, and maybe as, of course, for you as someone who's been in, spent time in Utah, just the idea that Ryan Smith is going for a bracket style fan choice on the new name.
Yeah, I don't know how you control that, to be honest, without having tons of people vote for a very silly name. But if they start with all names they're willing to have, then go for it.
That's what I was saying. That's the one thing I will say. If they're going to be doing that, they better pick, because they said they'll start with 8 names. They'll better go 8 names that they are 100% confident. Like, that is a name that is marketable. It is a name that we can work with. If they just come up with fan submitted names and whatever, and it's like, oh, here were the 8 most submitted names, that's not going to end well, especially with what has already been submitted. Some of the most outlandish stuff that I don't even want to say on the show.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I know what they are, but I have been around those jokes for a long time. But yeah, I think that if they accept fan submissions and then weed through everything and come up with 8 names that they're willing to live with, and that, the marketing firm that they have hired to work with them on it kind of vets, and they look at all the consequences of the name, they look at designs, I think that's fine to have a ballot vote once you get to that point.
I would say one name that has came across my head, and something that I don't mind. I'm not sure what your thoughts about this one is. And someone actually came up with this idea when I was at my day job. They're like, name them like the Utah Sting or the Stingers, one of those, with the with the name of the of their barn, the Delta Center, the nickname for that being the Hive.
Yeah, I believe that the Stingers were the name of the baseball team there at one point, but I know they are also like there's a volleyball team there called the Utah Stingers. So there may be like a brand issue
Fair
with
enough.
that, but because I know like the minor league baseball team, there was like the bees and there was like the buzz and then the bees for a while. So they have done the hive, thing before in sports. So I'm not sure you want to have a new team with an old theme.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, and that's why we we ask people who have kind of like who are familiar with the market, because they're like, yeah, like from the outside it might sound good, but yeah, it's not, that it doesn't work, which definitely helps us understand a lot more of that market.
Yeah.
But anyways, anything that I haven't asked that you feel like you should share that can really help us understand, what to expect for the Utah hockey scene?
Yeah, I do think, like I said, that there's a really strong hockey community there. And I think there's a lot of people who are eager to be a part of a new community. I think that based on everybody I knew there and who I talked to when I lived there, a lot of people were hockey fans, and some of whom moved there from other places and are going to now be excited. And I think that there's just so much opportunity there, especially around the youth hockey community, and to grow the game there in that way as well.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, I really appreciate you coming on. Where can everyone find your work and you on social media?
I'm at rmiriam on Twitter, and I am at Locked On Flyers for the show with myself and my co-host, Russ Cohen.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, once again, thanks a bunch for coming on.
Of course, anytime.
And that's going to be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Hope you guys like what you heard. If you did, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube, SiriusXM, ad-free on Amazon Music. Just a heads up, guys, we are going to be going through some changes. So if you can't find it, just follow us on social media. We're at LO_Coyotes for now. Or you can follow me at Robyn_Leano. If you're on YouTube, you can see me right here, where it's ROBYNLEANO. You can just follow me there, and I'll let you guys know any of the changes that are happening to this show as we get ready to continue to cover the team as they move to Utah. But interact with us, ask us any question you might have, and you can DM me. My DMs are open. Ask me any question. I wouldn't be afraid to answer right back on a future episode of the podcasts. Coming up on this show throughout the next week, we're going to talk NHL draft lottery. We're going to be talking. I'm going to be going through some ranks of each of the names that were submitted to that bracket, or at least to the top 8 names that I think might be on that bracket, and give you my thoughts on which one I think could be the best one, which one I think is absolute trash. I'll give you all my thoughts about that. For all the new Utah fans who are looking for players to follow, I will go ahead and get into some player grades from the previous season, as well as just overall player profiles, so you guys are able to understand who you're following, what players to look out for, who is going to be exciting to watch for the new NHL Utah team in 2024-2025. Well, that's it for today's episode. Once again, hope you guys staying safe out there. Hope you guys staying healthy. And don't forget to forever howl on.